Greetings, everyone. It's Qesheth again, and 93. I have another in the series. I think it's the 12th in the series of talks that I have been doing entitled The Major Arcana and the Paths of Return. Talking about the Major Arcana and its relationship to the journey of the aspirant on his journey to the return. Because hidden within the cards of the Major Arcana is the path that the aspirant, the initiate, will be taking on his path to initiation, to higher states of consciousness. Uh, in this class, we will be discussing Atu 10, the will. In the Sefer Yetzirah, it says this: the 21st path is the intelligence of consolation, and is so called because it receives the divine influence which flows into it from its benediction upon all and each existence. So think about that. The path that receives the divine influence here from Hesed. Hesed is the regulator, organizer of the ideas that flow from the supernals. This is the pillar of mercy. This path here is a path we'll be talking about today. In the previous talk, I discussed the path of Lamed, the path of Libra, balance, the path where the energies of the aspirant are further balanced and purified. And in this talk, I will be discussing the Wheel of Fortune. So in the last path, we talked about Lamed, here, that connects Tipperith, HGA consciousness, with Gevura, the purifying aspect of the divine. It's path 21. The title for this tarot card is the Lord of the Forces of Life. The Lord of the Forces of Life. Okay. It leads from Netzach, natural instinct, to Hesed, spiritual intuition. Okay. So it leads from Netzach, the natural, we talked about that, the instinctual nature, natural psychic abilities, to spiritual intuition. The planet that rules this particular path, this particular card, is Jupiter. In astrology, called the Greater Fortune. Crowley has this to say about this: don't think of fortune as good fortune. He, Jupiter, represents luck, the incalculable factor. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, Pisces, and is exalted in Cancer, showing its influence in so many aspects of our lives. Remember that the houses on the astrological wheel represent areas of our lives. Jupiter is also a double letter, as all the planetary letters are, meaning both riches and poverty. Jupiter is also one of the outer planets governing the universal affairs, one of the gates of the soul. Along with Saturn, Neptune, and these outer planets, they're called the gateways to the soul. And I would recommend further study on this. I touched on these cards, but there's so much more to be covered. And I would recommend to any student or anyone studying these to continue to meditate upon these symbols. Again, I use Waite and Crowley's deck because these are the ones I'm most familiar with. There are many decks out there, like the Golden Dawn. Many of them very true to the attributions, but many of them way out there. And again, the divine, the superconsciousness speaks in symbols. And so the symbols need to be present in order to invoke that force. So not all tarot cards are made the same. The Hebrew letter for this card is Qaf. It's a double letter, as I discussed before. The letter value is either 20 or 500 if it falls at the end of a word. The letter meaning is fist or palm of hand. There is a relationship between the letter Yod, the hermit, meaning hand, and this card meaning palm or fist. And here we have the path of the hermit here. Yod is the motive power that puts the wheel into action. Okay, so when we talk about the Yod, the Hermit card is the letter for the Hermit card. It is also the first letter of the divine name Yod He Vav He, Yod, the fire of creation, the motive force that puts the wheel into action. So these are just things to meditate upon. The runes in the Teutonic tradition would be a combination of Rado and the Anglo-Saxon rune Qesheth, the fire wheel. So, meaning the movement, showing the movement of action. Here, the aspirant is given a glimpse of the machinery of the universe and begins to be able to harness its energies to further assist them on their spiritual journey. For by understanding the workings of the wheel, the mechanics of the universe, you may begin to better utilize this force, rather than being its helpless victim as most folks are today. The wheel just rolls over most people, these poor, hapless victims of a ruthless God. I'm reminded of some thoughts by Crowley. Woe is man who, going through his life happily and lazily, is unaware of the big ball of karma rolling his way. This is the wheel of karma. Karma is a Vedic term that translates as action. Remember that. Karma means action. Everything in our universe is karma. It is the result of action. Everything around you, your TV, your car, are all results of action. They are karma. By understanding the working of the divine mind, the science behind creation, we can become better equipped to enforce our wills upon it. Everything we do produces a result. I always hear people going, oh, bad karma, bad karma, bad karma. But they really don't have any understanding about karma. Remember that karma means action, both good and bad. But this is not really a moral statement. It simply means that all actions produce some kind of result. Whether or not they be positive or negative depends on the action and the outcome of the action. Okay? So it's not really a moral statement to say bad or good karma. Every act that you do is karma. It's going to have an effect. Okay? Okay. We also accumulate karma through our many lifetimes. Once anything is put into action, it must inevitably come into fruition. Everything we experience in this life is the result of past actions. Sometimes it takes a while for the results of an action to play out, often lifetimes. But they will play out, coming when we are totally unaware and can't understand why this is happening to us. We had forgotten about the action that put this into motion so long ago. In Buddhism, this wheel is called samsara, the wheel of karma also, the wheel of cause and effect. This card also represents the universe in its continual state of change. Without change, all things would cease to be. Change is the creative power of the universe. Change keeps the wheel turning. Like I said earlier, it is the mediating of activity between two rotating opposites. The mediating of activity between two rotating opposites. Like I said, if life is just a series of events. If all these events stopped, we would arrive at the center of the wheel, the place of non-action. Some would equate this will as the will of fate, and in a way it is, inherited destiny, actions from past lives that have to play out in this one. That is why it is so important to take the Stoic view of events, learning to accept and overcome obstacles as they present themselves. The affirmation of the Master of the Temple, which is the initiation of 8-3, which is Binah here, is to interpret all experience as God dealing with their soul. It is a great way of looking at things, for thou art God. You are the determiner of your reality. Keep that in mind. You are the one who determines your reality. We are not a faith that begs the gods to save us. We understand that our actions, our thoughts every day is our prayer. It doesn't matter what prayers are coming out of our mouth. What does matter is our actions and thoughts, because these are the things that are producing our reality. Let's take a look at the cards. We will begin with Crowley. In this card, we see two wheels, one above the other. Here, above, and here. Okay? Whose rotating action is producing the energy represented by the lightning bolts that empower creation. I think about turbine engines, or the wind fans, the wind turbines that create electricity or power through rotation. And these two wheels here are probably rotating in opposite directions, creating the energy to create the energy that creates events, that creates reality. Okay, so in this card we see the two wheels, one above the other, whose rotating action is producing the energy represented by the lightning bolts that empower creation. I'm going over my notes. I'm trying to keep myself straight. I'm reminded of the Vesica Piscis, which is created by the union of two circles or wheels, creating the vulva shape where all manifestation issues forth. The stars above coinciding with phases of this universal energy. Here's the stars on this wheel. Begun on the universal wheel and transmitted to the wheel of manifestation below, points of synchronicity. This is also the wheels that were seen by Ezekiel when he was given a glimpse into the machinery of the universe. Crowley's wheel has 10 spokes, showing that this action is on the material plane, Malkuth. And there's other things to talk about that also, because 10 is a secret number of Hesed. And that I'm going to leave that to the student or aspirant to figure that out. There are 3 creatures on the outer rim of the wheel, a serpent, who Waite and Crowley called Typhoon, a monkey, so we have the serpent creature, okay, a monkey-looking figure called Hermanibus, and the Sphinx, Hermanibus and the Sphinx, representing the 3 alchemical elements, sulfur, salt, and mercury. These 3 elements are represented on the tarot as the Emperor, sulfur, the Empress, salt, and the Magician, Mercury. This is the philosophical Mercury, represented by the Sphinx. In the Vedic system of the East, these elements are called the 3 gunas, or yunas, or hunas. I pronounce it guna. They are called rajas, tamas, and sattvas. Crowley says this about the gunas, that they are hard to translate, as they are not quite an element, a quality, a form of energy, a phase, or potential, for all these ideas enter into it. The best way to describe them would be that the gunas are 3 forms of energy that govern the forms of phenomenon. Okay? There are 3 forms of energy that govern the forms of phenomenon. Sattvas correlates to Mercury, represented by the Sphinx that sits at the top of the wheel, whose qualities are lucidity, balance, enlightenment. The Sphinx is a symbol of supreme attainment, the synthesis of the four perfected elements. The Sphinx is also the gatekeeper in earlier mythos that encouraged the aspirant, the seeker, to know thyself. Rajas, represented by Hermanibus, who is a mixture of Hermes and Anubis, called Huru im Anu, meaning Horus as Anubis. Anubis is the gatekeeper, and he corresponds to sulfur, the fire that flows through creation, giving motion to all things. Thomas, represented by the serpent, whom Crowley called Typhoon, the monster who tried to overthrow the gods in Greek mythology, until he was struck down with a thunderbolt by Zeus. I am also reminded of the battle between Thor and Jormungandr. Thomas represents salt, sloth, inertia, laziness, and heaviness. It is these three forces that keep the wheel spinning as it constantly seeks to regain equilibrium. Think about this. These three forces keep the wheel spinning as it constantly seeks to regain equilibrium. It is said that the gunas revolve, meaning that not any one guna will be predominant for indefinitely. The universe is in a constant state of change. These three phases of energy supersede or slay one another daily. Take your daily life. You sleep at night, you're ruled by Thomas. When you're running, going real fast, fiery, Rajas is dominant. And then when you're in your meditation and Claire or having epiphany, Sattvas becomes dominant. So this is a great thing to remember when things are going good or bad. It will not last. It is said at certain times, though, the universal will and the personal will sync, and this is when a person's luck is said to change for the better. Gamblers know that this sort of event is short term, and they need to learn to look for it and to ride it out. The star in the center of the wheel here represents our star, the star of our being. The center of the wheel is also the sum of all action, which is stillness. We as aspirants seek the center, the place of inaction. For each of us is his or her own wheel, spinning and producing our life. Think about it. All things rotate around a center. It is the same with us. Our lives and energy rotate around a center. This center binds together the various components that give us physical manifestation. When it departs our bodies begin to decompose, breaking down to their base elements. I always think about an atom with a nucleus containing a positive and a negative, with electrons rotating around the center. This helps to explain our energy bodies. Those who have the sight describe seeing people as balls of light, with lines moving about on the inside. The star has 10 points, which, when added to the 10 points of the wheel, adds to 20, the number of Qesheth. There is a square in the center. You can see it right here. A symbol well known to our Masonic brethren, showing that everything is measured in exact proportion, also showing the squaring of the circle. The purples refer again to Jupiter. Hesed, the organizing force of the universe. Gold, showing that this is an operation of sun consciousness, conscious organization. Interestingly, the initiation of Hesed is the initiation of the exemptus adeptus, exempt from the laws of karma, for he has achieved non-action, exempt also from reincarnation, freed from the wheel of change, having risen above its influence. Let's take a look at Waite's card real quick. Waite says this about his card. This is Waite's card. The perpetual motion of a fluidic universe, the flux of human life. The Sphinx is the equilibrium therein. Waite's card is based on a illustration by Eliphas Levi. I don't know if anybody, Levy, Alephus Levy, people pronounce it differently. I don't know if people are familiar with, many of you are familiar with him. He was an occultist. I would definitely recommend studying him. He has this to say about this card. The Wheel of Ezekiel contains the solution of the problem of the quadrature of the circle and demonstrates the correspondences between words and figures, letters and emblems. It exhibits the tetragram of characters analogous to that of the elements and elemental forms. It is a glyph of perpetual motion. The triple ternary is shown. The central point is the first unity. 3 circles are added, each with 4 attributions, and the dodecad is thus seen. The state of universal equilibrium is suggested by the counterpoised emblems and the pair of symbols. The flying eagle balances the man. The roaring lion counterpoises the laborious bull. Keta the crown, Tippereth beauty, and Hesed foundation form a central axis, while wisdom, Hakma, equilibrium with understanding, Bina, and the severity of justice, Gebura, makes a counterpoise with the mercy of justice, Hesed. You see the Sphinx as in Crowley's card. He sits on top of the wheel, for as we have discussed before, he is the equalizing force of the wheel. Okay? Symbols on the wheel are the symbols for the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac and the tetragrammaton, Yod, He, Vav, He. Now we talked about that. Here we see it. Yod, He, Vav, He. The name of the god of material manifestation, the demiurge. His wheel has 8 spokes, referring to the action of Mercury, the philosophical Mercury. The philosophical Mercury is represented by the magician, who's on this path. Now think about this. This is the magician represents will, the enforcement of will, calling forth of will. So uh, the aspirant is better able to enforce his will in his life. It kind of refers to that. The philosophical Mercury is represented by the magician, who uses consciousness to rearrange the structure and qualities of metals and transform them into something new. Turning lead into gold is an example. He has 4 cherubs in the 4 corners of his card, representing the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Taurus the bull, the fixed sign of earth, okay, here. Aquarius, the angel or man, the fixed sign of air. Scorpio, the eagle, the fixed sign of water, here. And Leo, the lion, the fixed sign of air. They have been fixed, meaning that their energies have been purified and redirected by the aspirant's previous work. Each of his cherubs has a book which represents the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, also referring back to the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Matthew is represented by the man Aquarius. Mark represents Leo, uh, the lion. Luke, the ox, Taurus, and John, eagle, Scorpio. These raw forces are brought under control by the word will, by the word of our will. His wheel also contains the symbols for Mercury and the glyph for Aquarius. So you see it right here. Here's the symbol for Aquarius, the symbol for Mercury. Symbolizing the alchemical so Aquarius, the symbol for Aquarius is a symbol for the alchemical process called dissolution. The alchemical explanation for this process is that dissolution is the transformation of a substance by submerging it in a liquid. Dissolution breaks down corrupted and artificial structures, releases inner properties and powers of a substance. The figures on the outer rim are the same as described in Cruelly's card. Here you see them here. His wheel has the word taro, here's Taro, which translates as to turn. Transposing the letters, we also get rota, which means wheel, orat, to speak, pointing to the vibratory structure of the universe, and the use of the voice to invoke through a vibration into manifestation the will of the aspirant. He also has the symbol here for sulfur, salt, Mercury, Aquarius. The lesson of this card is this: we are not victims. There are no accidents in the universe. We create our own realities. Fortune provides us what we earn, which is not always pleasant. We must be careful what balls we put into motion in our lives. I always use that symbol of a ball, rolling a bowling ball. We cannot escape the force of karma. We will see the results of our actions manifest. We are the result of many lifetimes, many actions. We create our own hell or heaven. As aspirants, we must be careful about the decisions we make. That is why it is so important to consult our oracles on an ongoing basis. We must learn to examine our actions to see what results they will produce. Also knowing that the great work will result in our being guided by gnosis, knowing. See, that's what you're shooting for. Once you get to a certain point in the spiritual development, HGA consciousness, and you begin to receive gnosis, knowing, you will no longer be lost. You will not, you will be more sure in your way, more direct in your actions. This path will make you more direct in your life, and make your life, I don't know how to say it, more organized, more willed. And that's exactly it, more willed. We must learn to examine our actions to see what results they will produce. Also, knowing that the great work will result in our being guided by gnosis, thus creating a better reality for ourselves. A wise older mentor of mine once told me that before embarking on any activity, to ask myself one question: to what end? Let's look at some of the attributions from Liber 777. The color in the king scales violet, as we know, is attributed to Qesheth. The perfume is saffron. The stones are amethyst and lapis lazuli. The plants, hyssop, oak, poplar, and fig. The animal is the eagle. Again, the eagle is attributed to Jupiter. The magical power is political ascension. So you would use, if you were to master the power of this path, you could promote yourself politically. In the body is the digestive system and the circulatory system. The magical weapon is the scepter. The holy books would be Liber 7, Chapter 3, and Liber 418, the fourth Aether. We will finish with a short reading by Cruelly. Just give me a second here. Follow thy fortune, careless where it lead thee. The axle moveth not, attain thou that. And with those words, I will close this short talk and thank everyone for being here to listen to this talk. I hope these talks are helping people out and helping them to better understand these cards. Again, the major arcana, hides the mysteries of spiritual initiation, in plain sight. And so It's very important to understand these cards and to understand their influence in your life. Again, my name is Qesheth. I do appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you have any comments or anything else that you'd like me to cover, please let me know. The next class I will be doing, or next discussion I will be doing, will be pretty interesting because I'm going to take a break from the major arcana right now, and I'm going to go to and I'm going to discuss the small cards. I'm going to do a short discussion of small cards. I can't go through the meaning of every small card, but I can show you some pretty cool stuff to help you interpret them and interpret their meanings, by looking at the various attributions. So that's the next talk I'll be doing, hopefully soon. For now, I bid everyone a fond farewell. 93.